Hello everyone, this is Professor Hill, and this is a short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics, Philosophy 2306, here at St. Philip's College. This is the fall 2018 semester. This is the online version of the class, hence the video. And today's Friday the 19th of October. So just a couple of housekeeping things, and then we'll talk a little bit about Chapter 6, which is where we are in our book, Doing Ethics by Louis Vaughn. The housekeeping stuff. Just about finished with the grading. Still got a few more to finish. But also you should know that those get turned into midterm grades, which go out on Monday. Now again, let me be clear about this. The midterm grades are just an indication of where you are. It's a snapshot, which you have access to your grades all the time anyway, but this is just kind of where we are at the halfway mark. Only the final grade at the end of the semester in December is the one that gets recorded. So again, it's there, but it's kind of temporary, so don't freak out too much about it. It's just a way to let you know where you are, which, like I said, you can know anytime, 24/7. However, I'll finish that today, Friday, and so you'll have an idea. I'm going to turn in the midterms on Monday. Okay. That being said, let's switch back to Chapter 6. I mentioned that Chapter 4 laid out this big distinction between consequentialist and non-consequentialist theories. And then Chapter 5 went into some of the consequentialist theories. And those are the people that are determining what's good or bad, right or wrong by the consequences, by the outcomes. They're looking to see what's going to happen and then making a choice based upon that. Determining what's good and bad, right and wrong based upon that. That's the distinction. Now, non-consequentialists aren't doing that. They know that there's going to be consequences. They might like them, they might not, but they're not using them to determine what's the right thing to do. So what are they? Well, they're coming up with rules and principles. Those are the things we're going to use in order to determine what's the right thing to do. Now, like I said before, there's pros and cons to both sides of this kind of seesaw between consequentialists and non-consequentialists. They're moral theories, they're exactly opposed, but they both have pros and cons. You'll see that the chapter 6 in our book, starts off talking about the philosophy of Immanuel Kant. And they get right away into a couple of quick things that we need to sort out, which is both a hypothetical imperative and a categorical imperative. What's the difference there? And then this corresponding distinction about perfect duties and imperfect duties. Now, as you read in the book, you'll see that a categorical imperative is something that you absolutely categorically have to do. It's a rule that Kant has determined to be one that you just really, you can't break. It's something you gotta follow. Even if you desire doing something else. Like, you're a student, you get in a jam, you get behind, and you end up not being able to prepare for a test, and you cheat on a test, and what happens? You get caught. Now, when you get caught and your professor asks you about it, you might think to yourself, all right, I'm going to lie because obviously, if I get caught cheating, that would be bad for me. By the way, cheating is bad for you. But now you've been caught. Now you get asked about it, and you think to yourself, what I want to do here is lie. But you also realize that's just going to be making it worse. You're going to be piling lying on top of cheating, and you think to yourself, I know what Kant says. Kant says, you should never lie. You should just fess up and come clean. Hopefully you get some points at that, at that stage just for being honest about it. But even though you got a desire to do something else, he says it doesn't matter. Even looking at the consequences, you can see them. You're aware of them. You know what they are, but you still have to do the right thing. And in this case, the right thing is to not lie because that's a rule. So you fess up and you say what happened. Now, I got to tell you, there's some other situations where there's something that you want to do, and there might be, and this is a distinction that Kant's going to draw and say, look, you know what? Sometimes there's things that you want to do. You have certain desires you want to pursue, and that's okay. That's going to be a hypothetical imperative, but what he really means by this is that you can pursue your desires. There's nothing going to ban you from doing this. And he's got, as you can see, especially when you get into the third, fourth pages of our textbook, our author, Louis Vaughan, talks at length about how Kant determines these things. Where do the rules come from? And he's got, and we'll do more about the foundation of it mañana. But for today, the other thing that we got to just focus on, and you'll pick up right away, again, right off the bat, the beginning of chapter 6, is this distinction between perfect and imperfect duties. And you got to think about it this way, which is that when there's a rule like don't ever lie, that creates in us an obligation. And sometimes the duty to follow that rule is a perfect duty, meaning there's no exceptions to it. And he would say lying falls into that category. It's a categorical imperative. You got to always tell the truth. But he's also going to say there's going to be some things, some imperatives, like helping other people. Well, sometimes there might be an exception to that, given the circumstances. Like if there's somebody drowning, you might not be able to go help them because you don't know how to swim. There might be some other situation where somebody needs something, but it's something you don't have. You know, somebody shows up and they need a lot of money. You don't have any money. So there's limits. No moral theory, certainly not Kant's, is going to ask you or require you to do something as a moral obligation, which is impossible or even impossible for you at that moment in time. If that's the case, then you're not going to have that moral obligation. There's going to be an exception, even though there's still this rule, and there's going to be an imperfect duty to follow it, given these set of circumstances. Now, Kant's rough on lying. On lying, you can't ever do it. You got to always tell the truth. That's it. And again, he says, lots of situations, you're going to be in situations where you're going to want to lie or fib a little bit, or you're going to have reasons to not want to tell the truth. And, you know, I heard a great philosopher recently. He was speaking over at Trinity University. He was visiting from Tulane. And he said, yeah, if you ever want to mess with a Kantian scholar, he says, just ask him about planning a surprise birthday party for your friend. You know, this is something that's good for him, good for you and everybody else, but you might be required to lie about it. He says, that always puts him in a jam. Because they want to say that might be okay, and then they go, no, you can't ever lie, even if you get caught in the middle of preparations for your friend's surprise birthday party. But again, as you'll see at the beginning, we just want to sort out categorical imperative means it's an imperative, and again, you got to remember what an imperative is. It's an obligation or rule that you need to follow. And there's going to be essentially categorical and then hypothetical with different levels of obligation, and about also the desire, the intent you have, whether it matters or not. You know, related to that, as you'll see in the chapter, is the distinction between perfect duties and imperfect duties. And that perfect duties, you just got to remember, there's no exceptions to them. It's a perfect duty to follow that obligation, which is why he builds in a little wiggle room with the imperfect duties. Give himself a little out. Now, that being said, already start thinking about the next case study and about how you want to apply these things, because we're going to look at Kant. I'm going to talk a little bit more tomorrow about the foundation of these, where these things come from, how he determines them, about universalizing the principles, and about respect and negative and positive human rights. And then we'll also do some Aquinas and natural law theory as well. But for today, I just wanted to get us started into the chapter, read through that whole thing, start thinking ahead to the case study, and and have a good weekend. I know it's Friday the 19th, so have a good weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.